Just a few hours ago, former President Trump and Vice President Harris had a debate. In today's English lesson, we are going to learn some English phrasal verbs, some advanced vocabulary, and some idioms that will help you if you want to watch some of the news talking about how the two candidates did. Many people in the United States disagree. Did Trump do better? Did Harris do better? I am just an English teacher. I am not going to share my opinion. I just want to give you the tools so that you can watch the news and form your own opinion. Let's take a look at a news clip. I have slowed it down just a little bit and I have put the words on the screen. Let's watch and then I will come back and we can talk about it.
Tonight in Results 2024, as Vice President Harris and former President Trump face off in their first and possibly only debate.
It was actually the first time the two had ever met face to face. Neither one held back when it comes to some of the big issues in the race. News 6's Mark Lehman is following the latest this morning, and of course, things got tense at times, Mark.
In the news report, you saw them mention face to face. Let's talk about what that means in English. It means meeting in person, talking directly to someone. During the last debates in 2020, they were not face-to-face debates. We will talk about what kind they were in just a little bit. For every term, every idiom, I will have a picture, I will have the official definition, and I will also use it in a sentence. In last night's debate, Trump and Harris had a face-to-face discussion about important issues. Oh boy, our first English phrasal verb, held back. Held back can be used in a couple different ways, but in the news report, it was used like this: stopping yourself from saying or doing something harsh out of respect. So maybe you don't always say exactly what's on your mind. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, but in the news report, they said both candidates did not hold back. Here is an example sentence. I'm not sure if this is true. Trump held back his anger when Harris criticized his policies. Criticize means to say bad things about something. I don't know. It seemed like Trump got a little angry. Please let me know in the comments if you think he got angry or did he hold back his anger? And also, if you believe this English lesson is helping you learn English, would you mind hitting that like button? And if this is your first time here, subscribe so you never miss another English lesson.
Tonight in Results 2024, as Vice President Harris and former President Trump face off in their first and possibly only debate.
It was actually the first time the two had ever met face to face. Neither one held back when it comes to some of the big issues in the race. News 6's Mark Lehman is following the latest this morning, and of course, things got tense at times, Mark.
Yeah, there was some heated back and forth over key topics in this race. Each of the candidates knocking the other's policies.
Ooh, tense. Take a look at that picture. Tense. What does it mean? We have a couple different meanings in English, but let's talk about this one. When people feel nervous or worried, making the situation uncomfortable. The debate became tense when they talked about immigration. And if you don't know what immigration is in English, it means people moving from one country to another. It is one of the topics that has been talked a lot about in this election. We will talk about a few more later.
Yeah, there was some heated back and forth over key topics in this race.
Heated back and forth. Heated back and forth. What does that mean? Well, if you know heat, it does have something to do with being hot, but it doesn't have anything to do with temperature. If someone gets mad, you can say that they are hot. When we talk about heated here, it has something to do with anger, with being tense. Heated back and forth, a strong argument between people with lots of disagreement. Disagreement, meaning they don't agree. There was a heated back and forth between Trump and Harris over healthcare. That is another big topic in this election. Healthcare. Not every American can afford cheap healthcare. It costs a lot of money for some people to visit the hospital or to visit the doctor's office.
Yeah, there was some heated back and forth over key topics in this race, each of the candidates knocking the other's policies and defending their own records in hopes to sway undecided voters.
In the news report, they said knocking policies. Now, you might know what knocking means. One way we use it is like in the picture. Somebody is knocking on a door. It might sound like this. But knocking policies means something different. Criticizing, remember, saying bad things about something or questioning it, criticizing or finding problems with someone's plans or ideas. Harris kept knocking Trump's policies on the economy. If you have seen any of my other English lessons about the election, we have talked about economy. Think money.
Each of the candidates knocking the other's policies and defending their own records in hopes to sway undecided voters.
They talked about swaying undecided voters. Let's talk about sway first. It's a verb meaning to change someone's opinion or decision. Let's use it in a sentence. Both candidates tried to sway undecided voters by explaining their views. In other words, you try to change somebody's mind. But undecided voters, what does that mean? People who haven't decided who they will vote for. There's a small percentage of Americans who don't know who they are going to vote for yet. I am filming this in early September. Those voters have until early November to decide on who they will vote for, who they will choose to vote for. Let's look at a sentence using undecided voters. Undecided voters were watching closely to see who had the better answers.
Yeah, there was some heated back and forth over key topics in this race, each of the candidates knocking the other's policies and defending their own records in hopes to sway undecided voters. A handshake kicked off the first meeting between former President Trump and Vice President Harris.
There's a good chance you hate English phrasal verbs because they can be so tricky. Let's talk about one of those pesky English phrasal verbs right here, kicked off. Now, you may have heard of somebody being kicked off a bus. That means they were forced to leave, but kicked off can mean something else. It can mean to start something. The debate kicked off with questions about inflation. If you don't know what inflation is, don't worry. We will talk about it a little later.
A handshake kicked off the first meeting between former President Trump and Vice President Harris. The two then sparred over one of the top issues for voters, the economy.
I did make an English lesson about getting ready or getting prepared to watch the presidential debate. You may want to watch that video after this one, but I mentioned sparring. So let's talk about it again because they used it in the news clip. To argue or debate in a strong but controlled way. By controlled way, that means nobody got too angry. It didn't get too heated. Trump and Harris sparred over the issue of abortion during the debate. And I did an entire English lesson about how Harris and Trump disagree over abortion. I will leave a link to that at the end of this video. And if you don't know what abortion is, don't worry. We will talk about that a little later too.
A handshake kicked off the first meeting between former President Trump and Vice President Harris. The two then sparred over one of the top issues for voters, the economy.
I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation.
Virtually. Virtually. We can use virtually in two ways, and we will talk about them both right now. Virtually can mean almost. Take a look at that picture. I will make it a little bigger, but fog is virtually covering that entire bridge. We can only see a little bit of it. It's almost completely covered in fog. And that is the official definition of this virtually, meaning almost completely. Harris said Trump's plan was virtually impossible to work. It's another way to say almost. But what if I said the 2020 presidential debates were held virtually? What does that mean? That means not in person, not face to face, not head to head, which we will talk about in just a minute. Let's make that picture a little bigger. It looks like they are having a virtual meeting in the picture. Nobody is actually in the room with each other. So let's look at the official definition: online or through video, not in person. So in 2024, this sentence is true. The debate was held live, not held virtually, like some events. Inflation. Everyone around the world is talking about inflation, and here in the United States, it's no different. I know that if you are living in Argentina or Turkey or Turkey, inflation is out of control. What does inflation mean? When the prices of things go up, making it harder to buy them. Yes, we have inflation here in the United States. Americans don't like it, but I do know it is worse in other places around the world. Here's an example sentence. Trump said that inflation is a major problem for families right now.
The two then sparred over one of the top issues for voters, the economy.
I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation.
Abortion was another big topic.
For years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done.
Again, I have a whole video on the differences between Trump and Harris when it comes to abortion, but that was a big topic last night during the debate. What is it? It's a medical procedure to end a pregnancy. Harris and Trump strongly disagreed on abortion during the debate. In the news clip, they mention federal government. I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about how it is different from state government. We have both here in the United States, but the federal government, the national government that makes laws for the whole country. There are some laws that are the same for all Americans. It doesn't matter which state somebody lives in. Trump said the federal government should handle the economy better, but also every state has its own government. Sometimes when you visit a different state, it can almost be like visiting a different country. State government, kind of like what it sounds like. The government that controls each individual state. Harris argued that state government should have more say on healthcare. That is just an example sentence. She said almost the opposite when it comes to abortion. Right now, each state handles the laws when it comes to abortion. She wants that to be handled at the federal level. She wants federal government to take over abortion rights.
Abortion was another big topic.
For years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done.
The government and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
The candidates then went head to head on border security.
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border.
We talked about face to face earlier. How about head to head? It's basically the same thing. A direct competition between two people. Trump and Harris went head to head in a debate about taxes. Okay, some big topics: immigration, healthcare, abortion, inflation, the economy. Well, this one is about immigration. They mention the southern border. If you know north and you know south, the United States is bordered by Canada to the north, and it is bordered by Mexico to the south. What is the southern border? The border between the US and Mexico. Trump promised stricter control at the southern border. Many Republicans, that is Trump's party, believes too many immigrants are coming in through the southern border.
Abortion was another big topic.
For years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done.
The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
The candidates then went head to head on border security.
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border?
He'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
Former President Trump also worked to link Harris to President Joe Biden, who dropped out of the race back in July.
Be careful with this one. They mentioned the verb linked. We also have the noun link. I often say I will leave a link to that lesson at the end of this video. That is a noun, but link can also be a verb, something you do. So it can mean closely connected to something else. Harris said inflation and unemployment are linked. Unemployment means people do not have jobs.
Former President Trump also worked to link Harris to President Joe Biden, who dropped out of the race back in July.
She is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden.
I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump.
The debate ending with each making their case to voters.
Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first.
Guess what? Studying English a lot is linked to you becoming better at English. In the news report, they mentioned that Trump puts himself first, or at least that's what Vice President Harris said. What does that mean, putting yourself first? That means thinking of their own needs before others. So if you are a parent, you shouldn't put your needs before the child's needs. The child needs the parent to survive. Harris accused Trump of putting himself first instead of the American people.
Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first.
She's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
In a post on social media, former President Trump called the debate 3 against 1, saying the moderators were biased and failed to fact check Harris.
Okay, we have a tricky one here. Biased. Biased. In a minute, we're going to talk about another word, bias. But what does biased mean? Unfairly, preferring one side over the other. Trump claimed the media was biased against him during the debate, meaning the moderators, if you watched the English lesson I did about getting ready for the debate, you know what moderators are. Trump thought the moderators were biased against him, meaning they liked Vice President Harris better. So to review, biased is an adjective that describes someone or something as showing unfair preference or prejudice. For example, the news report was biased towards the opposing political party. If it's real news, it should be unbiased, right down the middle. I always try to pick unbiased news stories for us to watch in these English lessons. But you can also have a bias. In short, bias is the state or attitude itself, while biased describes a person or thing that has bias. So they're almost the same thing, but that word, biased, is always an adjective describing somebody or something. Bias is a noun. You can have bias. Fact check. So important when you listen to politicians speak. Are they telling the truth? Fact check. The definition: checking to see if statements are true. Let's face it, both Harris and Trump lied last night to make themselves sound better. But who lied more? Please let me know in the comments who you think lied more. After the debate, many people wanted to fact check what Trump and Harris said. Did they tell the truth the whole time? That is it for now. We can talk much more about the debate and the election. Down below, I have 2 English lessons for you. One is about how Trump and Harris disagree about abortion, and the other one is to get you ready for the debate. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.